Bills Mafia. Well, that happened. Thursday night football against the Houston Texans. And I think a lot of us were feeling the same way heading into this game. We were concerned a little bit about that Texans defense, but I don't think that we were this concerned. Hey, Rich, how you feeling, man?
Disgusted, disappointed. It overwhelmed like the offense and the offensive line was for the Buffalo Bills the whole game. It was a disappointing way to lose this game for our Buffalo Bills.
We're going to get into all of it. We're going to get into the offense, defense, a nice kickoff return by Ray Davis on his birthday. I thought there was a little bit of life there before half, and then we watched Davis Mills. You heard me correctly, Davis Mills lead the Texans down the field to score a touchdown. And the second half, the offense did a little bit of something, but I felt like they couldn't get out of their own way. So we're going to break it all down. If you guys are joining us and you haven't watched this before, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, hit that like button. That helps us in the algorithm. If you're watching on X, drop some comments. If you're watching on Facebook, share this, drop some comments. The chat, I want it to be heavy. Tell us what you think, how you feel, anything. The offense, Josh Allen, Joe Brady, the defense, Sean McDermott, any of it. And Akeem, I don't even know where to start because this team has been so inconsistent all season. And the talk around the national media was, what is this offense going to look like now that Keon Coleman is going to be benched again for a second game? They showed a vertical threat last week, throwing the ball deep, like Josh connected with Shavers last week. We thought maybe we see some more of that this week. The offensive line was just overwhelmed. There was injuries. Every time you turned around, there was a guy from the Bills going in the blue tent. I feel like they should have had like 4 or 5 blue tents on the Bills sideline. It was like every other play. It was like Terrell Bernard, Christian Benford, Deion Dawkins, James Cook. I mean, anybody you can think of was going in that tent, AJ Epinesa. And it was just like, at some point, next man up isn't even a thing anymore. And I'm not making any excuses at all because the offensive line was overwhelmed by that Texans defensive line. So let's start there, Akeem. Let's start with the offensive line and then just kind of let the show flow wherever the show flows. Talk about the offense, defense, whatever. Josh Allen was sacked 8 times today. I can't remember a game where Josh Allen, if he has ever been sacked 8 times in a single game. Can you? Has there been a time in Josh Allen's career, even the 2018, 2019 bad offensive line days, can I remember Josh Allen being sacked on every single drive? And some of them, like the third, it was like, I think it was 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 15. And he took like an 18-yard sack because he was just running around hoping to God that somebody was going to magically get open. So talk to me about the offensive line. Let's start there. I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of ranting. There's going to be a lot of bitching about what's going on. Let's talk about the offensive line and what your thoughts were there, and then we'll kind of talk about the offense as a whole and Joe Brady. What's your thoughts, man? Give it to me straight.
The offense was overwhelmed, right? The offense was obviously, and it was a battle of nutrition at the same time, right? Because, like you said, there was a multitude of injuries that happened throughout the course of the game. A lot of people were hurt and were banged up. Some people made it back, and some people didn't, right? But the offensive line, whether it was Spencer Brown or Deion Dawkins or Vandermark, or Torrance, the entire offensive line was overwhelmed throughout the entire course of the football game when you had 8 sacks. And we've heard it throughout the course of the pregame, right? About how we never seen a set of the defensive ends have 8.5 sacks like the Houston Texans. And they came out and they showed exactly what they was worth in terms of the presence in their defense and the ferocity and the physical prowess that an attitude that they present on the defensive side of the ball. And it was a dominant performance, and the offensive line was overwhelmed for the entire course of the game. But what was frustrating for me was, if the offensive line is overwhelmed, what are we going to do to help?
right? This is one thing. Now we're like, you know what? We have to depend on our receivers. You're gonna have to go in. We're gonna have to do some max protection. We're gonna have to block some tight ends, hold some extra tight ends. We're gonna have to have our running backs pass block in certain situations because we're giving up too many sacks because our offensive line needs the help. So our receivers are going to have to do more this game.
Right.
Because we're going to have guys that's going to have to help our offensive line that's obviously outmatched and obviously overwhelmed. And Joe Brady did nothing. Joe Brady said, you know what? I know you guys are giving up these sacks, but hopefully the next time around you will stop these guys. Hopefully the next time around, 2 sacks. Hopefully the next time you stop these guys. 3 sacks, 4 sacks, 5 sacks. Hopefully the next time you stop these. Where is the adjustments as a coaching staff? Where is the adjustments as an offense coordinator? It is a matter of nutrition, but it's no excuses. At the end of the day, the Houston Texans had the same amount of rest days as the Buffalo Bills. And yes, they played at home, but they came out and played with maximum effort. And the Buffalo Bills not only looked like they didn't play with maximum effort, they didn't have any adjustments as a coaching staff in terms of giving the offensive line some type of help if you see them struggling to the capacity. It's not like it's blind. It's not like you have to look and peel the tea leaves. It's obvious that the offensive line is overwhelmed and they're screaming, "Help me!" And they wasn't getting no help. So I do put a lot of blame on that on Joe Brady because it might not have worked, but at least we could have sat here and said, you know what, Joe Brady, he tried to max protect. Joe Brady tried to pass block his running backs. Joe Brady tried to give his guys, his offensive line that was obviously overwhelmed because we all see it. The millions of people that watch Thursday Night Football can see it. The casuals can see it, right? And Joe Brady, and that's the frustrating part about me. And aren't you a coach? And so it was just, I apologize for the rant, but you said I can do so.
No, it's fine.
So,
I feel like that's going to be the show, is one big rant.
Yeah, and it's a lot of blame to go around. There's a lot of blame to go around.
So I was battling with this when I was watching. James Cook, as great as he is, and he went for over 100 yards today. He had that big run to start the game, and as great as he is, and he got dinged up too, but your best pass blocking running back is Ty Johnson. You need to use him to block these guys. You need to have Jackson Hawes, Alec Anderson, whatever you got to do, you got to figure it out. You're going to get your quarterback killed. And when Josh got injured, now it was a run, when it was a scramble when he got injured. I think there was, I don't know how many millions of people collectively held their breath. But what's frustrating is this team made adjustments defensively at halftime. There was just that one drive in the first quarter where you were like, man, this defense is terrible. In the second half, I'm not even mad at what the defense did in the second half. They gave up 3 points. And you have Josh Allen. You should be able to score more than 3 points in the second half, or more points than they had in the second half. It just wasn't there. The Bills scored 3 points in the second half. It's just, I don't understand Brady's philosophy of, I got to scheme guys open, but guess what? It doesn't matter about separation today. It didn't, because Allen had no time to get to the guys anyways. He couldn't get off his first read. And yes, he forced some passes. And yes, that last play, I don't know who he was throwing the ball to. It didn't look like it was a pass that was going to be brought in by anybody on the Bills. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I feel like, and we had this conversation, you and me had this conversation about a month ago. Joe Brady's time in Buffalo needs to be up. Like, I understand we're 7-4, we're in the wild card, whatever, but this is not a team that's going to go far in the playoffs, because look what happened tonight. You lost to a backup quarterback because your MVP quarterback was on his back all night. And how do we go from beating the Chiefs the way that we did? How do we go from Josh Allen scoring 6 touchdowns the way that he did, to him not even sniffing the end zone one time, not even sniffing it. It doesn't make any sense. The inconsistency of play calling needs to be studied. The inconsistency of protecting your quarterback needs to be studied. I don't know where to go from here. It's nothing that can be changed in season, because McDermott had a press conference and he said 2 weeks ago, Joe Brady's my guy. After they lost to the Dolphins and put up 13 points, Joe Brady's my guy. There's nobody on this staff that I feel like would be able to step in and call plays on offense. So here we are, 7-4, 10 days off to watch film and try to get things right. And I'm willing to bet any amount of money that they come out against Pittsburgh and they look different offensively. I guarantee it. And then we think to ourselves, well, why haven't we had this all season? Because Joe Brady doesn't know how to scheme against strong defensive-minded coaches like the head coach of the Houston Texans. He was outcoached bad. I don't even know how to phrase it the right way. He was outcoached, and it was laughable tonight. Like, I'm surprised that Josh Allen doesn't have more injuries. So I don't know what bright spots we could talk about minus James Cook. I thought that big run to start the game was going to be kind of a trendsetter, like it was going to set the tone. All right, Cook is able to find cracks and seams and get into the second and third level and things like that. But then it just seemed like the offense was out of structure all the time, all night. It just seemed like thank God for the Ray Davis kickoff return, because who knows how many points they would have scored. 12, 13. And I don't know. I was on Twitter, during the game, and I was bitching about the defense. And then in the second half, the defense got better and the offense just didn't do anything different. Just Josh Allen was like, he was uncomfortable. He threw a horrible pick into triple coverage and the fumble from Shakir. And what's one thing that we've said since the start of the season? It's going to be extremely difficult to duplicate what the Bills did last year offensively. Josh Allen was only sacked 14 times. They didn't turn the ball over, only 8 times. Nobody was fumbling. Well, now here we are. James Cook had a fumble last week. Shakir fumbled. There's been other guys that have been doing stuff like that too. It's just Josh Allen's throwing picks again. It's the Josh Allen experience, but it's the roller coaster going down Josh Allen experience. So, I mean, where do we go from here, Akeem? What does this offense go from here? Because they can put up points. They've proven they can put up points. But then they have games like Miami and tonight and against the Falcons where they just seem like they're overmatched against head coaches that know how to defensively scheme for this team. What does this mean going forward? You know what I mean? Like, it's a 7-4 team. It's not, and I didn't mean to cut you off. It's not.
No,
it's
fine.
not
No,
like
it's
not like this is a 3-8 team and they're the bottom feeders. It's a 7-4 team that is about to hit the toughest part of their schedule. Like, what do we have to look forward to? Like, how does this thing get turned around? What's your thoughts?
First of all, let's start from the very top. Everybody's to blame. Joe Brady's to blame. Sean McDermott, the head coach, is to blame. Brandon Beane is to blame in the roster construction, because beyond the building, besides what we saw tonight in the offensive line and having James Cook, the roster construction from Brandon Beane, we made an emphasis to get better on defense, and we got worse. And we have to be more critical of our team at this point, at this juncture. Josh Allen is about to be 30 years old. The Buffalo Bills on defense looked horrible tonight. We're saying that the Buffalo Bills defense, 3 points against it's Davis Mills. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what the Buffalo Bills did in the second half is comparing us for going to work every day and doing our jobs and getting credit for it. Why are we getting credit for doing something we're supposed to do? Is Davis Mills, Woody Marks is in the backfield.
along with Davis Mills. They struggle in the red zone. They're 23rd again in rushing the ball. This is not a great offense that we're playing, and they was able to get away with certain things that they was able to get away with because of the Buffalo Bills struggles. And every time the Buffalo Bills plays a competent offense, it seems as if the defense, in my opinion, it's awful, and it's inexcusable to have a defensive-minded coach and your defense to look at the way it looks. It's inexcusable to have a defensive-minded coach and for you to have a poor defense, for you to have a god-awful run defense. And as far as the wide receivers and separations, the nerve of Brandon Beane to give that interview and talk about 30 points per game, the nerve of him to think what he's done last season had anything to do with the next season. That's a big red flag to me. Everybody's to blame with what we're seeing from the Buffalo Bills. Joe Brady's to blame, but ultimately Sean McDermott hired this guy. How much passes? How much? Rico Dennison, Brian Dable, Joe Brady. He has something with Leslie. He has something with Leslie Frazier. Being a quality head coach, a part of being a quality head coach is knowing how to pick your coordinators and pick your coaches. So how much slack are we going to continue to give Sean McDermott? And if we're going to talk about, yeah, he has 100 victories, and the Buffalo Bills have won 5 AFC championships, what is the standard here? Because that's the problem here. A lot of us Buffalo Bills fans, we have different standards in terms of where we see our Buffalo Bills should be. And I'm always thinking Super Bowl. At this juncture, Josh Allen, 29, going on 30 years old. At this juncture, 2018, I'm thinking Super Bowl. And anything less than Super Bowl is unacceptable in my opinion. And the fact that we look like we took a step back on defense when we made a concerted effort to look on offense in the off season to get better. Excuse me. I'm passionate here. We made a concerted effort in the offense in the offseason to get better on defense, and we look worse. What is going on here? So there's a lot of frustration going on. There's a lot of frustration. We're not where I think we should be.
After the 2020 season, if you would have told me that in 5 years this team would not be better than that 2020 team with Josh Allen and all this other stuff, I would have said you're crazy. If you would have told me after the 2020 season where the Bills made the AFC Championship game that the Bills would not have made a Super Bowl in 5 years, I would have told you were nuts. And I'm not gonna bash Sean McDermott because I think he's done a lot of good, obviously, for this team and this franchise and the community and all that stuff. But it's not good enough. I'm sorry. Like, we have to sit and watch teams like the Eagles, right, go through quarterback changes and losing guys to free agency and all this stuff and go win Super Bowls because they have a general manager that understands that I have to figure out how to consistently be good. Do you think that Howie Roseman, after he won the Super Bowl last year, do you think that he sat there and said, I'm good, we're okay, we'll just do what we did last year? Or do you think he made a concerted effort to improve that roster for this season? You're damn straight he made an effort to improve that roster. And I don't care if people get mad at me for talking about Brandon Beane. I think I'm over the fact that he gave everybody so much shit about roster construction, like you said. And I basically said it a few minutes ago. There was no way the Bills were going to duplicate what they did last year offensively. It was they broke records for scoring points in Bills history. They broke records for the least amount of sacks. They broke records for the fewest amount of turnovers. That was not going to happen again. So if you just think by adding Joshua Palmer that everything's going to be great, it's not. It's not, because you know what? Injuries happen and people regress, and some people don't progress the way you want. And you draft guys like Keon Coleman, who didn't even play tonight because he's been benched for 2 games because of his attitude. Like, I don't know. There's a lot. Like, I appreciate what Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have done to get this team to be a consistent, competitive team. We lived through 17 years of not making the playoffs, but at some point there has to be meetings that are had. Like, we didn't do enough, and it's too late now. Trade deadline's passed. This is the team that they're going to field the rest of the year, and I think it's going to take something. I don't want to say catastrophic to happen, but I think that losing is going to change this culture of we're fine. We have Josh. We're fine. We extended core guys. We're fine. We got 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. We're fine because we did it the year before. We're okay. And I don't know. The offensive line has regressed from last season. I don't know if it's the scheme, if it's Joe Brady, if it's Aaron Kromer. I don't know what's going on. If these guys are just getting older, they're not playing as well. And I understand Dion was out. He got knocked out of the game. But it's like, we can't give these guys passes anymore. And I hope that there's a ton of criticism for the next 10 days, because it's not acceptable to score 19 points on the Houston Texans. Yes, they have the number one defense, but if you're better than them, you find ways to win. And this team had no answers on offense for what that team did defensively. None. No answers at all. And I mean, I hate to just keep arguing and yelling and ranting and going off, but it's frustrating because we've done this now like 3 or 4 times this year, where it's like October, it was the 2 losses in a row. All right, we hit the lull. And then the game against Miami. All right, we're calling out Joe Brady. And now this happens. Like, who's there left to call out?
And it's not like, talk about trading deadline and the offseason pass and the trade deadline pass, and the Buffalo Bills can't make no moves. When the Buffalo Bills can make moves, are they even making the right moves? you have to even question the moves that the Buffalo Bills are making. I love Deon Walker, and I hope he continues to progress. What's the thought process in terms of building a defense and TJ Sanders and having Ed Oliver and Dwayne Carter? What's the thought process of having these undersized defensive tackles when we having these big issues stopping the run and we have undersized linebackers? Like, what's the philosophy? What's the thought process behind this? So not even making the moves and having time to make moves, I'm even starting to question, are these guys fit to even make the right decisions anymore? We can't continue to say, hey, Brandon Beane drafted Josh Allen in 2018. It's 2025. It's 2025. So it in my opinion, it starts from the top, and it starts from roster construction. And when I look at the Buffalo Bills team, I'm looking at Josh Allen, I'm looking at 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, I'm looking at, I would say, above average offensive line. But the weapons around Josh Allen, we talking about Joshua Palmer. Joshua Palmer, let's call a spade a spade. He's just another guy. He's just a guy. He's a integral part in the Buffalo Bills offense overall in the whole wide receiver landscape. Joshua Palmer is just another guy, and the Buffalo Bills have a bunch of guys just another guy within the Buffalo Bills offense. And in my opinion, when you have a guy like Josh Allen, and when you're trying to win a Super Bowl and you never won a Super Bowl before, it's not about being complacent and accepting what you've done. It's wanting to advance and stretch it further in terms of achieving that ultimate goal. And in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills is not ascending. In my opinion, they're descending, and the Buffalo Bills defense have looked as worse as I've ever seen. The Buffalo Bills wide receiving core has looked as worse as I've ever seen. And thank God we have an above average offensive line in 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, because who knows where we will be without that. So I just think we have to get better, and it start with decision making first of all, in terms of are we putting the right coaches in the right positions and the right GMs? Are we putting these guys in the right positions to take us over the top? I think it starts there in terms of how to evaluate the Buffalo Bills, and then we could talk about getting on the football field. I might be getting a little bit too deep, but
no, you're good. You're good because
we are who we are. We're 7-4, right?
I was just watching a video. I got a couple news things for you that just came across my phone. First off, Spencer Brown was seen in the locker room with his arm in a sling, so I don't know how severe that is. And there's a video floating around of Josh Allen throwing things around on the sideline, saying, "What the fuck are we doing?" When have you not even Brian Daboll or Ken Dorsey, have you seen Josh Allen do that? He does not get very boisterous. He does not get very animated on the sideline. Yes, in the press conferences, he'll go to the podium and say, "I have to be better. I left some plays out there. You know, these throws are on me. The turnovers are on me," things like that. But when was the last time you saw Josh Allen on the sideline slamming a tablet, throwing his helmet, and saying, "What the F are we doing?" It doesn't happen. So you could tell he's frustrated at the play calling because what else would he be talking about in that situation? And I don't know the severity of the Spencer Brown injury. Our intern on Twitter /X just sent me a thing saying that Spencer Brown was in the locker room with his arm in a sling. So I don't know if it's a shoulder injury, an elbow injury, a forearm injury. So that's not good.
It's not good at all, and it's obvious that that's a tell and tell, right? The Buffalo Bills usually do, as an entire organization, players and coaches do a fabulous job of keeping things under wraps, right? Yeah. And even in front of the camera, and that's some exposure there in terms of there may be some type of disconnect with Josh Allen and the offense in terms of the scheme and what's going on. So because for your quarterback to say, "What are we doing?" that is as an obvious red flag.
I don't. Obviously, no one likes to see that, especially when your quarterback has not been. We like the fiery Josh. We like the last week he was a psycho and he was screaming as he was running into the end zone while he was being tackled. We like the guy who spikes the ball and flexes and does all that stuff. But I don't think we like the Josh that's frustrated with play calling. You could tell. Now, I don't know what play this was. I don't know if this was after the 4th and 1 call when instead of just doing a tush push like they've done with Joe Brady for the past couple of years, when you need a yard, you get a yard. Like, who cares what it looks like? Who cares how ugly it is? He decided to run the ball on 4th and 1. And it was a horrible decision. The play design was terrible. Your offensive line at that point was getting just beat to shit. And you don't use your 260-pound, 6'5" quarterback to get you a yard when you are scrapping and clawing for every first down you can get, every point you can muster. And that's where I think a lot of us collectively get frustrated. It's like the inconsistency of what Joe Brady's doing. It shows in games like this. You got Josh last week throwing the ball deep to Tyrell Shavers. You got Josh last week throwing the ball to James Cook and throwing a nice screen to Ty Johnson. And then this week, it just looked, everything was disorganized. Everything looked like fire drills, and he's running around just trying not to get sacked. And there was more times other than the 8 sacks that he took that he could have gotten sacked even more, that he extended plays. And any other quarterback besides maybe a couple, that's another sack. The Texans could have had double digits in sacks if it wasn't for Josh Allen. That's terrible. I'm sorry. No matter how you slice and dice that, there's no excuse for that. Like you said, you got to get guys involved on the offensive line, whether it's Alec Anderson or Jackson Hawes or Gabe Davis or something. And I don't even know where to go from there on that. Like we talked, you talked in length about Brandon Beane. And I think for the past month, Brandon Beane's been the hot topic for a lot of Bills fans. Nothing happened at the trade deadline. You secured your first-round pick for next year. You saved it. You didn't want to trade it for Jalen Waddle. And my concern is the hit rate on first-round picks, I mean, Maxwell Hairston, yes, he left the game also injured, but I guess the jury's still out on where he's going. He was trending in the right direction, but his draft history has not been great. I don't care how many gems you find in the 6th round that are awesome stories that outperform where they were drafted. You got to hit on first-round picks. If you're not willing to part with your first and second-round picks, you better hit on those, especially when you have a quarterback that you're paying, a running back that you're paying, a defensive end, a linebacker, a cornerback that you've all given all these contracts to, your left tackle, your right tackle, all these guys you paid a bunch of money to. You have to hit on your draft picks, and you're not. It's just not. Like Keon Coleman, to me, is the prime example of a swing and a miss. You traded away where you were at in the first round. You didn't take 𝐬𝐿 for whatever reason. You went after this big-bodied receiver that was going to do something in the red zone for you, or Josh Allen was whispering in your ear. It doesn't matter. You're the general manager. You staff the roster. That is your job. Who cares if Josh Allen's telling you, I want Keon Coleman? You go get him the best player at that position available, and that was 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐞. So I don't care if we have Khalil Shakir. 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐞 can do everything, so can Khalil Shakir. It's a stupid argument for those people that say we didn't need him. He's the wrong fit. So I don't know what to expect on next Sunday, 10 days from now, because the Bills are banged up again. The injury report was almost 2 pages. And I understand they had walkthroughs this week and they were just doing the bare minimum, but I don't know. That again is a coaching decision. If you're on a 3-day, practice week, do you need to do just walkthroughs every single day to keep your guys healthy? I mean, more guys got injured tonight than last week. And yes, it was 3 days rest, but they didn't do anything during the week. I don't know if we have a training staff issue. I don't know if it's what they do during the week. I don't know if it's a strength and conditioning issue. I've never seen so many injuries on a team that is riddled with injuries every year. This is the worst I've seen it. And I don't know how you can compete every week when you have your starters are not playing and you're using depth guys in practice squad elevations to field a team on Sundays. So I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to talk about defense or should we just keep going? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, we can keep going. We have a lot of injuries, and I don't know. That's just football, and I just see that's just football, man. It's a combat sport. It's so hard to tell in terms of is it the training staff and that's so hard to tell because it's a combat sport, and that's just the luck of the draw when you play a combat sport. Dion Dawkins even alluded to it earlier in the week. It's football, right? So
100%.
the Buffalo Bills, the offense was pretty healthy. Keon Coleman was a scratch, but that was a decision. We Gabe Davis was in there. We had the best offense we wanted there. We didn't have no significant injury on offense coming into this game that would excuse me, that should prevent us to scoring 10 points as an offense. That's inexcusable. So it's disappointing. It's disappointing.
I mean, we can talk about the wide receivers. I don't think that was an issue tonight. I mean, I'm sure there's some film geek that's going to go watch the all 22 tomorrow and tell me the separation rate for all the Bills wide receivers. That wasn't the issue tonight. It was scheme. The schemes were bad. There was no adjustments made at halftime to help their quarterback. You got guys coming here from other teams in free agency like, Elijah Moore and Joshua Palmer. And what do you think they're thinking right now? They're not being targeted. If that's a Josh Allen or a Joe Brady thing, you take your pick. They're not scheming these guys to be successful. I can tell you for a fact that Palmer's getting open. If you look at all his next gen stuff, he's getting open. You got Curtis Samuel, who Brandon Beane paid a ton of money to last offseason. He's constantly injured. it's just I don't know. Like, I came into like the game at halftime worried about the defense, and now I'm more concerned with the offense. Honestly, I'm more concerned with the direction this offense can go, because Joe Brady has masterclass games like the Panthers and the Chiefs, and even, I guess, last week to an extent. But then he has just where he just shits the bed against the Dolphins, against the Falcons, tonight against the Texans. Like, he just looks overmatched, doesn't know how to make adjustments, and he just goes with vanilla style play calling. And that whole philosophy of we're not showing anything, that's done. It's week 12. You got to show everything. You got to win every game here on out. So I don't know if against Pittsburgh maybe they show something different, and then we sit here and say, where has this been? Where has that been? You dial up this beautiful play on 4th and 27, but you can't dial up a 4th and 1 play. Like, what are we doing? Like, how do you have the brain bandwidth to say it's 4th and 27? Maybe it's an oh shit moment, but maybe that percentage of that play is very low and the Bills just executed it very well, but then you can't execute a 4th and 1. And this has been the same thing consistently this year. I feel like in short yardage situations, the Bills just can't figure out how to execute on short yardage, whether it's a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 1. I don't get it. And back to the defensive side, I understand the Bills, they were beat up pretty bad as far as injuries. But you made adjustments in the second half playing with guys that were either injured or depth players. Where was that passion in the first half? It looks like they got more physical in the second half. It looks like they got more aggressive in the second half. We've talked about this before. Why are we not starting games the way that we are making adjustments and finishing games in the second half? That's a head coaching thing, because he's calling the defense. I don't know if you have a take on that. Like, I don't even know where we can go with the rest of the show, because there's so much to pick apart. And there was a few good things here and there, but most of it was just, they were like walking through quicksand on offense. The defense had no pass rush. That's a good talking point. Why have we not had a pass rush for 9 years? I don't understand it. If your offense or your defensive philosophy is bend but don't break, somehow you still have to have a pass rush, because Brandon Beane sits up there every offseason saying we have to affect the quarterback. Sean McDermott every offseason, we have to get after the quarterback. We can't let them have time in the pocket. We have to get them off script. But here we are in year 9 with Sean McDermott, and we have no pass rush. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like, I don't know where we can go on that, because it's still frustrating.
It's definitely frustrating when you look at the Buffalo Bills in entire team. This is why I'm not upset that, as much as a lot of us wanted moves to be made at the trade deadline, moves wasn't made, because the Buffalo Bills are more than one move away from championship contender. They have, upgrades that could be made at safety, upgrades that could be made at linebacker, defensive line still, wide receiver. So, it's frustrating that the Buffalo Bills can't find a way to consistently get to the quarterback. I'm thinking it's scheme. It has to be a combination, right? It has to be a combination of scheme and players. We can't just put 100% in one basket or the other. Sean McDermott has been there for some time, and since Sean McDermott has been with the Buffalo Bills, they struggle to stop the run and consistently get to the quarterback. And we have to put that onus on him. What is he doing to fix this consistent issue we've been having, and especially unacceptable because of the expertise he comes from, right? Being a so-called defensive guru. So I expect when I think of struggles, I expect, at least, even with injuries, the Buffalo Bills defense to show some resistance and to maintain a certain standard, because the head coach is a defensive guy, and at times we see the Buffalo Bills give up 200 yards against 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽 and Bijan Robinson and who we played last week, that Sean Tucker. Like, why are we having these consistent issues? We talked about the New England Patriots several years back in the win game when they had multiple 100-yard rushers. Why are we having these persistent issues defending the run? If the Buffalo Bills could defend the run, they can be Super Bowl contenders, and we lack the ability to do so. And not only do we lack the ability to do so, this is the worst we've been in the Sean McDermott era. And I don't know where we go from here, because, and this is why it's a red flag, right? And I don't know where we go from here, because the Buffalo Bills in the offseason, they made a concerted effort to get better against this very thing that we're talking about. So they made a concerted effort to get better, and they've gotten worse. And we're talking about during a time where, if we're as fans, what do we talk about a lot of times, right? We talk about schedules. This is not an overwhelming schedule for the Buffalo Bills. This is at a time where we should be dominating our opponents in this schedule. We're playing a backup quarterback in Davis Mills. We're playing a team that hasn't had a running back for the entire season. They haven't had their running back. They had guys go down. They cut guys at the running back position. They struggle in the red zone, right? So it's definitely frustrating. And now we have to look at, because 7-4, that was our weak part of the schedule, right? Now we have to play the Patriots. We have to play the Cincinnati Bengals, possibly with Joe Burrow.
But Joe Flacco can do the same thing.
Joe Flacco can do the same thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers, right? The Philadelphia Eagles. So this is
the Cleveland Browns defense.
This is not a thing where, Baltimore's 5-5, Kansas City's 5-5, Houston's 6-5. Everybody's right there. It's not like we have a gap that we can play with, right? So this was our easier part of the schedule, and we showed our struggles, we showed our deficiencies, and now we're playing the tougher part of our schedule. Can we make adjustments? We're going to see. I'm not sure how good is this team this season for the Buffalo Bills. Should we temper our expectations? Is it Super Bowl or bust based on what we've seen throughout the first 11 games for this 2025 season? I'm not sure right now. So
I'll be flat out and tell you right now, this team ain't making the Super Bowl. This team that's been inconsistent all season, and everybody wants to pull out the 7-4. Have you watched these games and seen how they have played against some so-called inferior opponents? Did you watch them play against the Falcons? Did you watch them get just boat raced against the Miami Dolphins? They were in the game against the Patriots, fine, but that was when the Patriots were still, I think, figuring a lot of stuff out, and the Patriots aren't looking back now. And yes, the Bills won some games, but they won some ugly games too. There was games when the offense and the defense didn't look good. They gave up 40 points to the Ravens. Say what you want about Josh Allen going nuclear in that game. They still gave up 40 points. They could have lost that game easily. And it's just the 7-4 record. I don't feel like that's a true factor as to where this team is right now. I had them losing 4 games all season, and there's still 6 games left. I don't know if you look at that schedule. Tell me where there's 6 wins on that schedule to go 13-4. I can't find them, because to be honest with you, I think this is a 10-7 team. If Joe Burrow plays for the Bengals, they're probably going to put up a bunch of points. And yes, their defense is bad. The Bills have to play the Browns. Their defense is really good. Say what you want about their offense. The Bills have to play The Steelers, they're hit or miss. The Bills have to play the Eagles, like you said. I don't see a world where this team can make a run like they did when they were 6-6 and fired Ken Dorsey and did all that stuff. This doesn't feel like the same team. Defensively, this team, sure, they turn it around. They gave up 35 net yards in the second half. They still lost the game because offensively, here's the thing. How many complete games have the Bills played this season? How many complete games offensively, defensively have they played? Maybe against the Jets and the Panthers, those 2 games, maybe the Chiefs. So 3 games out of 11, they've played complementary football. It shouldn't be that way when you have Super Bowl aspirations. And here's my point. I want to ask you this. Whatever happens this season, I don't feel like this team can make a run in the playoffs. I just don't feel like they're built, whether you say it's injuries, defensively, the offense is out of structure, whatever it is. Do you trust in this offseason coming up the guy that's in control of the roster construction to make the proper adjustments to put this team back to where it was last season, where they made the AFC Championship game and they were 1 drive away from making the Super Bowl? Do you trust Brandon Beane to go out there and look at free agency and look at the draft with no money, by the way, because that's all been spent on the core players? Do you feel like Brandon Beane is the guy that's going to right the ship this offseason and get this team back in the right direction, make some tough decisions on personnel, move on from Matt Milano, move on from some of these other guys like Curtis Samuel and things like that? Do you trust Sean McDermott to, get this team back to where they are winning the AFC East handily, where they are an AFC 1 seed potential candidate? Because I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo on what Sean McDermott's done and what Brandon Beane's done to get this team to where it's at and have Josh Allen and all this stuff. But I'm concerned with this offseason. We're definitely losing Joe Brady. If he makes it to the end of the season, he's going to go either take a head coaching job or the Bills are going to move on from him. Bobby Babich is still the defensive coordinator, which I know you have concerns with that. There's a lot of stuff. I hate to say this, but did this team peak already? Was last year the peak for this team as far as the coaching staff and the roster construction and how everything just kind of fell in place? And I remember you and me having a conversation before the AFC Championship game, and you said, I feel like this is it. I feel like this is the year. It just feels different. And it felt like a lot of the stuff was going the Bills' way. They were winning games that they typically in years past, even with Josh Allen, that they would lose. A fluke play here, a dumb penalty there, things like that. And then it didn't happen. And then this team overall, with everything that they've added, all the defensive, players that they added through the draft and through free agency, adding a couple things on offense, signing all these core players, I feel like this team has regressed. And I feel like the coaching staff has regressed. That includes Sean McDermott. That includes Bobby Babich. And that includes Joe Brady. I feel like Brandon Beane got complacent. And I'm not going to be embarrassed or afraid to say that. I feel like he went out there this offseason and said, I know that we struggled defensively for the past 6 years in the postseason. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go and I'm going to just double and triple and quadruple down on defensive players. I don't even care if those guys are suspended for the first 6 games. They're going to get roster spots. When they come back, everything's going to be great. We're going to draft all these guys in the 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th rounds. And all these guys are going to come in and contribute and play and all this stuff. And here we are. The defense has regressed. The offense has regressed. Josh Allen has tendencies of 2019 Josh Allen, where he doesn't trust anything. He's taking sacks. The offensive line has regressed. The injuries are piling up. I don't know. I don't know what the outlook is. I'm not saying it's like, woe is me, this team is just doomed. But after a performance like tonight, which is like the 3rd time this year that this team has played poorly against an inferior opponent, on the road, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know what positives I should pull out to say it's going to be okay. They're still 7-4. It's fine. They're still in the wild card. It's okay. They're going to be fine. I don't know. I think teams in the AFC have caught up to the Bills and the Chiefs and the Ravens. I think teams got their quarterbacks. I think teams got their head coaches finally. And I think the opportunity that we had the previous 5 years of running roughshod over the AFC is gone. I don't think that because New England has a shitty schedule that they're just going to roll over and the Bills are going to come out of nowhere and take the East. And I don't think that next year is going to get any easier either. I think that New England is here to stay, and they have their franchise quarterback, and they have a really good head coach. So where do we go from here? That leads to
Tough. It's tough, man. It's really tough, and that's where the haters, they said that the Buffalo Bills peaked, and it's a lot to overcome. We have questions about the coaching staff. We had questions about the roster when it's healthy. This roster is far from healthy now, right? So how much can this roster with Michael Hoyt and Ed Oliver and a lot of these key guys that we wanted to depend on are out now, and it's really tough to overcome offensively and defensively. And I think whatever happens for the rest of this season, I think changes will definitely be made in terms of who's going to be calling plays going forward on the offensive and possibly the defensive side of the ball, depending on what happens for the duration of this season. But 10 days to recover. We'll see how the Buffalo Bills can regroup from this. We'll see who is left to practice next week for the Buffalo Bills. You said the injury report was 2 pages coming into the game. It's going to be the yellow pages next week when the injury report come out, right? So initial reactions to the game, the Buffalo Bills lose a heartbreaker, 23-19 in Houston. A winnable game for the Buffalo Bills, but coming up short, and we're once again, like you said, fall into a team that you just feel the Buffalo Bills should defeat. Yeah,
they lost to Davis Mills. I'll leave it at that. I don't know, man. The thing that concerns me is, as Bills content creators and Bills fans, we are always going to say we're calling for change. Like we've been complaining about Beane's roster construction, Sean McDermott's coaching, but is the Bills ownership going to do anything? Probably not. We're going to be back here in the offseason. And look, I'm not saying that the season's over by any means. I'm not saying it's doom and gloom, and I'm not saying that we need to go hide our heads in the sand, but that was an ugly game tonight. 2 weeks ago was an ugly game. And there's been a lot of ugly games this year. And that's not the standard that Sean McDermott's had in place since he's taken over. The Bills have looked good. Do they win some ugly games along the way? Yes. Is there games like tonight that they squeak out a win? Yes, but they haven't been doing that this season. Those games that are kind of ugly, but Josh finds a way, it's not happening. So that's why I'm a little concerned. We'll see that, like you said, 10 days off. Hopefully they can get some guys healthy. Hopefully the injuries weren't too severe, and then take it one game at a time and kind of go from there. I think that's about it, man. I think that's about as much as I can vent for one night. You want to take us out of here like always on Billsology? We'll be back Saturday night, by the way, a couple nights. So we'll gather our thoughts and we'll put together a more structured show and kind of break some things down. You want to take us out of here, man?
Yeah, absolutely. This was more of like, a reactionary show, right? This is more of a initial reaction, just getting on and conversing with the Buffalo Bills fan base in terms of how we feel and getting our frustrations out with our Buffalo Bills as they drop to 7-4 in this season on Thursday Night Football, falling to the Houston Texans with 10 days rest. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up. We hope the Buffalo Bills could regroup and get back to their winning ways, because it's going to be a tough stretch headed towards the end of the season. So, like DM3 said, we'll be back with Billsology later this week with our regular scheduled show, and we'll give you our more structured analytical thoughts and in terms of how we feel about our team and what we saw and what we feel going forward. So from 𝐸 Richens, DM3, Dave Myers, this is the Bills and Buffalo post-game show, ladies and gentlemen. I hope y'all sleep well. And I hope, going into work, I know there's going to be fans out there going into work like, damn, I saw the game. Damn, I know how it is. We'll suffer through it together. But as always, go Bills.
Go Bills. See you next time.